Hi, guys, and welcome to the second episode of the Single AF podcast. My name is Michael Noker. I hope you like my sexy, sick, flipmy voice. I have had the flu for like a week now. Slowly getting over it, but I do have to record today. I put it off until the absolute last minute, so here goes nothing. Today I'm going to be telling 3 dating horror stories. This is, of course, in honor of Halloween, so make sure that you do subscribe if you do like these stories, because I will have another episode just like this one next week. The first dating horror story happened about a year ago. It was right after I started my YouTube channel and right after I moved to Albuquerque. I found a guy online and he invited me over to his house. I told him, I don't really hook up or anything like that. He's like, well, no, but, we can get to know each other. We can talk. It'll be fun. I'm like, great. In his profile picture, he looks really hot and really muscly. Now, for reference, he was about 6'3" and probably weighed about 300 pounds of just solid muscle. I, however, weigh about half that, like 150 soaking wet, so I get intimidated fairly easily by guys sometimes. I get over to his house. He's super, super friendly, super sweet. We talk for a while. We end up drinking some wine and some whiskey, which don't go great together. We ended up actually watching some of my videos as well. Now, if you've never had the experience of somebody watching your YouTube videos while you are in the same room as them, I don't recommend it. It's a super awkward experience. But he was really nice for about 45 minutes. And then he brought up his ex-boyfriend, who, go figure, had moved out maybe 2 days before this date. His ex-boyfriend, he says, had used him for his money, was cheating on him, would basically just be drunk at home all day, not do anything around the house. He goes on and on for probably 20 minutes or so, and I'm getting ready to excuse myself. Anyways, when he invites me to move in with him so that I can quit my job and just focus on YouTube and writing full time. This, of course, is not my kind of crazy, so I did excuse myself. I was a little bit tipsy, however, so I get into my car, drove around the corner, and then parked, and got to sit in my car and wait for like an hour and a half to sober up enough to drive home. He did continue to call and text me for a good 2 days after that. I think he called me about 50 times and texted me probably 20 times or so. He just kind of couldn't leave it alone and kept trying. Finally, I answered and I'm like, look, dude, I'm not comfortable with this at all. If you call me again, I'm going to have to call the cops. He did try again another couple times, but finally he did leave me alone, fortunately, and I never ran into him again. And I was very thankful that he didn't even know what part of town I lived in. The second story comes from one of my closest friends in high school who we're going to call Schmelly. Technically, I could call her Kelly because that wasn't her real name either, but Schmelly's more fun anyways. So Schmally worked at a restaurant, and she met a guy at this restaurant who was very much into her. She was not particularly into him, though. But he wouldn't stop flirting with her. This was around the time that The Dark Knight came out, so probably 2006 or so, I want to say. He found out that she was absolutely obsessed with Batman, so he figured that it would be the perfect time to invite her on a date. And her being obsessed with Batman and really wanting to see the movie, she, of course, said, okay, fine. He picks her up, she's already eaten, he keeps insisting that they go and get dinner, but she's like, dude, I don't want to be late for the movie, that's kind of a priority for me, it's the reason why I'm, with you and coming with you. So they do get to the movie. The entire time, he tries to talk to her, and also hold her hand. She keeps pulling away, he tries to put his arm around her, and she's like, no. I don't do that, PDA is not a thing, I'm really not that into you. She's trying to be honest but sweet about it at the same time. He's not getting the memo, though. After the movie, they get into his car. He insists that they go and get dinner. She's like, dude, I am still not hungry, I just want to go home, I've got school in the morning. But he insists, and they end up running through the McDonald's drive-thru or Wendy's or something like that. He gets something for himself, starts eating it. They get on the highway, he drives home, and then he parks out front of her house to drop her off. As she's getting out of the car, he leans over and tries to kiss her, and she pushes him away and says, please don't call me. So she goes to unlock the door, open the door, and the lock is jammed in place. She looks over at him, and he's got this horrifying grin on his face, and he starts laughing hysterically and says, "Oh, haha, it's the date rape car." She freaks the fuck out, reaches her hand through the window, pulls open the door, runs inside, slams the door, locks it, freaks out a little bit, and then immediately calls me to tell me the story. This next story comes from a family member. We'll go ahead and call her Sarah, because why not? So Sarah was in her 20s, and she had a friend who really liked to go out with random guys and pick up guys from the bar. Sarah's not particularly into this, and but you know, she likes her friend, and she figures, well, I can at least keep her from getting hurt. Sarah's friend meets these two guys and invites her out on what is essentially a double date. So her friend is interested in one, and she figures she can pawn off the other on Sarah. Great. So Sarah agrees, goes along. They get to the bar, they're hanging out, they're having a lot of fun and everything. They all get a little bit drunk. Sarah goes to the bathroom, and when she comes back out, both her friend and her friend's date are gone, meaning that the only person there from their party is Sarah and the guy that she's on her date with. Sarah, of course, asks, like, where did they go? I don't quite understand what's going on here. The guy says, oh yeah, like, they took off, they're gonna go hook up, so I'm supposed to give you a ride home. Sarah, of course, is not about that life, but after, 30 minutes, this is in a time before cell phones existed. She can't really get a hold of her in any way. She doesn't really have another option for getting home, so finally she's like, okay, fine, I'll ride with you. Great. They get on the highway, but he takes a weird turn, and she's like, dude, this is not the way to my house. He says, oh no, I know a shortcut, and she's like, no, you don't. Like, you're not familiar with this area? You don't know for sure where I live, even. This is not a shortcut. Get back on the highway. And he's like, well, no, like, I had to swing by my apartment real quick. I gotta go pick something up. She says, dude, you need to get back on the highway or I'm gonna get out of the car. He, of course, doesn't listen to her, so he continues to drive. He slows down just enough, so about 35 miles per hour or so. So she opens the car door and she says, turn the fucking car around or I'm going to get out. He doesn't listen to her, so she unbuttons her seatbelt and gets out of the car. She rolls down this hill into this really grassy field and she lays down and hides there. He, of course, stops the car, turns it around, looks for her, and she continues to hide. She knows that she's like a couple miles from home, so she figures she'll be okay. He finally gives up and drives away, and she still doesn't know what would have happened to her if she had stayed in the car. Her friend, of course, does show up at home like 6 hours later, the middle of the night, and Sarah's just royally pissed at her. Like, why did you do that to me? Why did you bail on me? And they never went out together again. I hope you guys liked these stories. Make sure that you do subscribe. Next week will be more dating horror stories. Also, make sure that you subscribe in general because we talk about being single and dating problems and relationship problems. It's a lot of fun. If you have a dating horror story, make sure that you leave it in the comment section down below. If it's any good, it may even make it into next week's video. You never know. Also, make sure that you follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, all that wonderful stuff. There are links on my profile and in the description on this video if you are watching on YouTube. As always, I hope that you are having a fantastic week so far, and happy Halloween.